Okay. We don't like to leave a yantif behind. You know, when we experience a yantif, our job is to bring the yantif with us. Every yantif is another treasure that we inherit, and it's important. This is not done often enough. It's important after yantif to try to connect the yantif to what comes after, and not just talk before yantif about preparing for yantif, but then when yantif is over, we forgot that it ever happened, and we're on to the next thing. A little bit like what we tell the chacham, right? The chacham asks Maha Eidos v'hachukim v'hamishpatim, and we teach him all the halachas. And what do we end with? Ad ein maftirin achar haPesach afikomen, right? That we don't eat after the afikomen. Why don't we eat after the afikomen? Because we want the taste of the afikomen to remain with us. That's a very important message. That we want the taste of the afikomen to remain with us. That's true about the Pesach itself, that we want the taste to remain with us. I don't mean the Pesach food, but the spiritual gifts of the Yantif. So I want to talk about one of those gifts and how that translates into the days of Sefira and what we can do about that, okay? When Klal Yisrael came out of Mitzrayim, they traveled for a week until they reached the Yam Suf, and then the Yam Suf split. They went through the Yam Suf, they encountered Giluyim, revelations that are incomprehensible to us, unbelievable, and it's safe to say, at least from our understanding, that when they were sitting there in the Yam Suf with the dry water, whatever that is, however that worked, it says that it was Neid Noizlim. You know what Neid Noizlim means? In the Shiur it says that it was Neid Noizlim. Noizlim means running water. Nozel means it's like a fluid, like it pours. Neid means a pillar. That's not physically possible. Running water can't be a pillar. It doesn't say that it froze. It didn't freeze. You know that the water didn't freeze. Okay? It was just became hard. Water became hard. We don't have any way of even imagining what that means. Okay? Neid Noizlim. And they experienced at that time, they understood at that time everything. The whole world opened up to them. It was like they saw till Mashiach came. They saw the history of Klal Yisrael. Oz Yashir Moshe, right? They saw until Tchias HaMesim. They saw the meaning and the reason for everything. All the secrets were uncovered. They were able to see from one end of the world to the other. They were in a situation of complete connection to the purpose of everything. Can you imagine? You can't. Okay, it was an unbelievable moment. And the thing that was clearest to them at that moment was that the world was created for them. And they were the reason for the creation of the world. And it was their journey that Hashem created, our journey in other words, that Hashem created the world for. That was how they came out of Kriyas Yam Suf. Okay? I mean, you can't even imagine the level of inspiration at that time. Like the level, when they crawled and they got to the other side of the Yam Suf, you're talking about people that had experience as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu came and hugged you, like mamish, like in the clearest way possible. Like there was no greater joy. You can't be happier than that. You can't have more joy. You can't have more satisfaction. There was nothing painful. There was no avelos. It was just a moment of pure connectedness and simcha. Zeh keli v'anveyu. Unbelievable. In the description of Klal Yisrael coming across the Yam Suf, it says in the pasuk that they saw the Mitzrayim dead on the side of the Yam Suf. Vayar Yisrael es Mitzrayim meis al sfas hayam. They saw Mitzrayim dead. Why is that important to tell us? So this year by the Nilas HaChag, I spoke about this a little bit, and I explained that because Mitzrayim represents everything that wanted to hold Klal Yisrael back from reaching their tafkid. Every force that wants to say, don't grow, don't be makabel the Torah, don't go out of Mitzrayim, don't reach your greatness, don't connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? That's Mitzrayim, trying to hold us in Mitzrayim, trying to hold us back, trying to hold us down. And when they reached that moment in the Yam Suf that they just saw everything, and they saw clearly, there was a full experience that Hashem created the world for us and for our journey. Everything that Mitzrayim represents was dead on the side of the Yam Suf. There's nothing. You know, like, you ever have a decision, you're having a hard time making a decision, it's difficult, and then let me start with a simpler example. Then maybe I'll get a little bit more of a feisty example. But let's say you're not sure if you should take a job. You know, they're offering a nice salary. It seems to be good, but you're not sure. You're really up for the job. Are you going to enjoy it? Is it the right thing for you? Right? Who hasn't had such a struggle? You know, and then you take a leap. You take the job. But even as you take the job, you go to the first day, you're a little apprehensive, you're unsure. As you get used to it, there's a lot of questions, you have to be mechazik yourself, you're not so confident. But at some point, it clicks. Do you know that feeling? It clicks, like, I belong here. This is a good job for me. This worked. I hope that you've had that experience. This worked, this went. This is good, I belong here. This is a good job for me. And when that happens, what happens to all of your doubts? They're meis al sfas hayam. All the doubts are dead. All the doubts are gone. They're meaningless. They don't carry any weight for you anymore because you've had that moment of clarity. Sometimes someone has it as they're engaged, as a couple is engaged. I've seen that happen, you know. I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if this is right. I have certain doubts and fears, and I don't know if I could do this, and I don't know, and how do I know this is the right shidduch? You know, like all these fears of being engaged. Like some people, boys and girls, like this you know, like these feelings of worry and nervousness beforehand. And it doesn't happen immediately, but at least for many couples, at a certain point in the future, maybe it's a few days later, maybe it's a few weeks later, maybe it's a few years later, it suddenly becomes clear, like, yeah, this was meant to be. This was the shidduch. This was right. This was good. What happens to all the doubts at that moment? Meis al sfas hayam, right? And so on and so forth. In life, that's how it works. That when you reach that moment of clarity, the doubts fall to the side. And Klal Yisrael had a moment like that. Vayar Yisrael es Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is all the doubts, all the pushback, all the I can't do it. You know that I can't do it? All the I can't do it, that's Mitzrayim. And when Klal Yisrael was there in the Yam Suf and the Yam Suf split, there was no I can't. There was, we're doing this. This is our role. This is where we belong. This is my job. This is everything. And all the doubts are meis al sfas hayam. Vayar Yisrael es Mitzrayim meis al sfas hayam. What ends up happening? Klal Yisrael comes out of the Yam Suf, and Moshe Rabbeinu pushes them to go into the desert, into the Midbar. And suddenly, it dries up. All the inspiration dries up. Vayelchu shloishes yamim bamidbar v'lo matzu mayim. This week, right? Because last week was Yantif, right? So this week, Yantif was over Thursday night. So Friday, Shabbos, Sunday, they're traveling in the Midbar. Shloishes yamim bamidbar. A few days ago, they were like in the embrace of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now they're in the desert and they're thirsty. And they're like, where is Hashem? And they start feeling this discomfort, this like withdrawal from that love, from that closeness. There's like this moment of incredible intimacy with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then it's gone. And that's what Chazal say when it says they went 3 days and they didn't find water. It means 3 days without Torah. And it's because, by the way, of that experience, it's because of that Chazal were Mesakein, Moshe was Mesakein, that we don't go 3 days without laning. You know that? A minyan does not go 3 days without laning. We lane on Shabbos, on Sunday we don't lane, then we lane on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday we don't lane, but then we lane on Thursday, we don't lane on Friday, but we lane again on Shabbos. We never go 3 days. The most we go without laning is Tuesday, Wednesday. 2 days. And the reason for that is we are never going 3 days v'lo matzu mayim again. We're never going 3 days without listening to the Dvar Hashem. It was because of that experience that Klal Yisrael has this minhag of laning 3 times a week. We also lane Shabbos by Mincha, but 3 days a week. It's interesting that the Nisan is the first month of the year, and Iyar is the second month of the year. Right, we're heading into Rosh Chodesh Iyar, and we know that the 12 months, correspond to the 12 Shvatim. The 3 Yomim Tovim, the 3 Shalosh Regalims correspond to the 3 Avos. Pesach corresponds to Avram, and Shavuos corresponds to Yitzchak, and Sukkot is Yaakov, and the 12 months corresponds to the 12 Shvatim. Okay? And so that means that Nisan is Reuven, corresponds to Reuven, and Iyar corresponds to Shimon. So there's a Shemi Shmuel. The Shemi Shmuel is one of the Hasidic Sfarim. He says an unbelievable thing about why Nisan is Reuven and Iyar is Shimon. He says Reuven is a lashon of Re'iyah, of seeing, and Shimon is a lashon of Shmiya, of listening. So why is Nisan Reuven and Iyar Shimon? So just as an example, I don't think he brings this pasuk, but I think he would agree with this. Let's say, for example, Klal Yisrael says in Shir Hashirim, they describe HaKadosh Baruch Hu that sometimes we don't see him. Right? It says in Shir Hashirim in the second parak, it says, Hine ze oimed achar koslenu. Behold, he is standing behind our wall. Mashgiach menachaloinos, watching from the windows. Meitzitz menacharakim, peeking from the cracks. Sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hiding behind a wall. Sometimes we can't see HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They go 3 days in the Midbar and they're not with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When someone's behind a wall and you can't see them, so how do they communicate with you? You hear them. They could hear you and you could hear them. You can't see them, right? It's Shmiya, it's not Re'iyah. The Gra even says on that pasuk, HaKadosh Baruch Hu stands behind the wall, and when you daven to him, then he looks at you. But the standing behind the wall, that first has to be Shmiya. That first has to be listening. There's a madreg of a relationship with Hashem that it's like he's right here. Like when you're getting a tremendous bracha from Hashem, and when you're experiencing nisim from Hashem, if you ever had a situation like that, like incredible siyata d'shmai, an incredible nace, you feel like Hashem is right here. He's not hiding behind the wall. He's right here. It's re'iyah, it's seeing, it's in front of my eyes. The nisim are in front of my eyes. There's also a relationship with Hashem sometimes where it's like he's hiding behind the wall. I can't see him. I don't see the hashgacha. That's shmiyah. We can hear. We're listening, but we can't see. It's a little bit more of a distance. And the Shem Yishmuel says that Nisan, the month of the Geula, the month of Pesach, Nisan is we saw so much. Klal Yisrael saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu. 10 Makas B'chayros, the Man, the Kriyas Yamsuf. It was just an unbelievable Giloy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu started in Nisan. And when Iyar came, so there were Nisim every day in Iyar, but it wasn't this kind of revelation. It wasn't like Kriyas Yamsuf was. You couldn't even compare it. It was a little bit quieter. It was Hashem standing behind the wall. What's the point of that? The Shem Yishmuel says the point of that is to build our own muscles. When we always see HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when we're always interacting with Hashem, so then we don't build our own muscles of our own emunah and our own bitachon and our own devotion to Hashem, because He's right there. Like, for example, it's very interesting, when the Makkahs were taking place, so I don't remember which Makkah, maybe it was Shchin or Barad, one of the Makkahs, Paroi says, please take away the Makkah, right? Paroi was going crazy from the Makkah. Please tells Moshe Rabbeinu, please take it away. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'll take it away, but ve'ata va'avodecha yodati, but about you and your servants I know, ki terem tir'un b'fnei Hashem Elokim. What does that mean? You know what the word terem means? Anybody know? What? Okay, so very interesting. So Rashi doesn't translate it. Rashi's translated similar to what you're saying. Rashi says terem is not yet. Maybe it's before, maybe that kind of thing. Like you have not yet reached the point of having Yiras Shamayim. Terem tirud. It's not, you're not yet fearing Hashem. But the Ramban learns it exactly like you just said. The Ramban learns terem, before the Makkah goes away, tirun v'fnei Hashem Elokim. Then you have Yiras Shamayim. You know, when Hashem is going like this, then you have Yiras Shamayim. Terem, before it goes away, Moshe was saying, I'm going to tell the Makkah to go away. But I know that terem, it's only before the Makkah goes away that you have Yiras Shamayim. As soon as the Makkah goes away, you don't have Yiras Shamayim. You know, like that joke about the parking space, you know? Right? Like, yeah, while you're under the gun, you know, like then you remember Hashem. You know, there's no atheists in a foxhole, right? Now you remember Hashem. Before the Makkah goes away, you remember Hashem. But that's not the measure of a man. The measure of a servant of Hashem, the measure of Klal Yisrael, is can we have Yiras Shamayim when there isn't? It feels like there's been a lot of tzaros lately, I have to say. I don't know if it's, I was discussing with my wife today, if it's, it just feels like there's been a little bit of like an uptick, if I could say that, and it's besides for the war and all the aftermath of the war, but these boys that drowned in Eretz Yisrael, and this car accident in Lakewood, and the other car accident in North Woodmere, just like, it's too much, no? It's a little too much. And when we hear about tzaros, as Yidden, as children of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we ask ourselves, okay, what do we got to do? What could we do? How could we make a difference? What could we do? Is there something we need to improve? Is there something that we could do better? To be able, because if sometimes if it feels like there's like a midas hadin, so what could we do? And that's the way we should feel. But what do we feel when there aren't? When you turn on the Jewish news and it just says everything is awesome. Isn't that nice? Imagine that. It does happen sometimes. Not always tzaros. Sometimes it's just wonderful things. Sometimes the news is there was a tish, a Rebbe came to America. It's true, yeah, sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes, some days.
I mean, I don't listen to the news, I don't know, but I would always think that there's stars going on in their own.
No, there's always tzaras going on, but I'm just talking about things that are so jarring that they hit the headlines, that they like wake up the tzibur at large. You have to realize that we live in a time, it's a very, very connected time. If we lived 100 years ago, so we would live in Waterbury, and we would hear about the things that take place in Waterbury.
Even 30 years ago.
Yeah, but 30 years ago, they were still listening to the radio.
Yeah, the radio.
Okay? You still heard what was going on in the radio, There were still newspapers, I mean, there were newspapers 100 years ago, too, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't like... So I've heard.
But if you
I've heard, yeah.
100 years ago, or 120 years ago, let's say, if you lived outside of a big city, you might not have gotten national news
right.
like a month
right.
after.
You didn't know. You didn't know. You didn't know what was going on. And there was something about that was a little bit easier to connect with everything. In our city, Baruch Hashem, we've had, and Ken Yirbu, B'li Ayin Hara, we've had an enormous amount of simchas. Enormous. A few weeks ago, when it was still freezing cold in the winter, we had 4 Shalom Zachars and 1 Shabbos. That's amazing. That's incredible. 4 Shalom Zachars. Ken Ayin Hara. We should have more Shabbosim like that. We had 4 Shalom Zachars and 1 Shabbos. Coldest Shabbos of the year. You didn't have to go to the Shalom Zachars. I did.
4 bar mitzvahs in 1 Shabbos.
Yeah. What?
So we'll have 4 bar mitzvahs in 1
Yeah.
Shabbos.
I mean, it's a Hashem, we'll have 4 bar mitzvahs in 1 Shabbos. We have kalas, we had a vart this week, There's kalas, mitzvah, and continued simchas, Bar mitzvahs, the bar mitzvah this Shabbos, there are simchas. And if we didn't live connected to the whole world, we would go many weeks, it was just like, great, simchas. And every once in a while, unfortunately, there will be a tzara. And some of the tzaras are the type of tzara that makes us pull together as a community to help the person who has the tzara. But that it doesn't make us ask ourselves, what are we doing wrong? Because in life, there's a life cycle, and sometimes things happen. And some of the tzaras would cause us to get together in shul and then make a yom tefillah, because what's going on here? How is this happening? In our shtetl. The problem is that today, and that's why you have that attitude, the problem is that today, we hear the headlines in every single city around the world.
Exactly.
It's not
worse today, it's just that you're hearing it.
So yeah, in general, that's true. We definitely hear much, much more, and it's true. It's true. So there's a shooting in Australia, and we hear it. And so there's an anti-Semitic thing in France, and we hear it right away. And there's a Hatzalah ambulances in England are on fire, and we hear it, and we're hearing everything. It's true. But even in that world of hearing everything, it sometimes is worse than other times. And the types of tzaras change. If you turn on the news and it says that this older Rav was nifter or this person was nifter, I'm not saying that every time a person is nifter, it's a difficulty and it's sad and we should be nice about oil, but it's different than Lo Yoleinu finding out that a 15-year-old was killed in a car accident. That's different. Okay, that's the type of tzara that you just grope to even begin to understand what that means. Okay? So that's what I mean, that sometimes things, but there are times that we don't have tzaras like that. There are times that you turn on the news and let's say Mitzvah Hashem, like Lag BaOmer comes. Okay, we had a very difficult Lag BaOmer a few years ago. But let's say Lag BaOmer comes and you'll turn on the From News and it will have pictures of Meron and pictures of the Baba Rebbe lighting his Madura and the Satmar Rebbe lighting his Madura and all these different Tishin and everything. And it'll be very beautiful and it'll be wonderful and it'll be a Simcha in Klal Yisrael Lag BaOmer. The Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying. And those times are wonderful, and I hope we have tons of times like that. That's wonderful. But one of the things that we need to work on is not to let our guard down and not to be less motivated to grow and to change during those times, because then we become like Paroi. Terem tirum b'fnei Hashem Elikim. Before the Makkah goes away, then you have Yiras Shemayim. And it's a hard thing, when there's a Midas Hadin on us. I feel it myself, when one of my children is about to have a baby or something like that, I find myself being more careful about things, I have to admit. I feel like Hashem is what? Like everything's a schus. I find myself being more careful. That's a little bit of Paroi in me. It's a little bit of Mitzrayim. Because right now, everything is just calm. But we're still, first of all, always in the hands of Hashem. And second of all, we don't serve Hashem because we're afraid He's going to kill us. We serve Hashem because we're His servants. And we have a mission. And it's our pleasure, and it's our honor, and it's our purpose, and it's our tafkid, and it's our everything. That's why we serve Hashem. And when a Yid lives like that, so then it's not about the gun to the head. And that's what this month is all about. That's what the month of Iyar is all about. The month of Nisan is about all the incredible inspiration. That's the month of Nisan. The month of Iyar, that's when a certain stubbornness exists inside of us. I don't mean a negative stubbornness. I mean a very, very positive stubbornness. A sticking to it and do what we do because that's what we do. You know, I have like this incredible admiration for like Yidden that have lived in various communities. I don't mean like the big New York, California, Chicago, like the big communities, but there are Yidden that have lived in far-flung communities, even in this country, for 150 years. And you find every once in a while, like a small community, or a couple, or a Yid, that just stayed loyal to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, doing the mitzvahs, getting rid of the chametz before Pesach, lighting the Megillah on Purim, doing what they need to do without a yeshiva in the neighborhood, without someone being mechazik them, just a certain stubbornness. This is what I do. You have people that consistently for years in Siberia, in concentration camps, in difficult times, in far-flung places, they just stayed loyal, keeping a calendar, staying loyal. This is what I do. It's incredible, and I have tremendous admiration for that. I ask myself if I would have the kayach to do that. We live in a world that we're constantly being inspired. You know, we have access to learning Torah, to hearing Shiur, to connecting with each other. We're very fortunate. But there are people who haven't been that fortunate, and there's this quality, this Jewish quality that we have, that even if Hashem is behind the wall, we don't forget about Him. Even if we don't see Hashem, we still remember Him. And we remember our responsibility to Him. And that's a mark of Chodesh Iyar. Chodesh Iyar is that, you know the famous Rashi Tevis of Iyar, Ani Hashem Roifecha, you ever heard that? That Iyar is Rashi Tevis, Ani Hashem Roifecha. They say it's a time of refuah. But what's interesting is that those words were said on the Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh Iyar. In when Klal Yisrael came out of Mitzrayim, it was said after they came out, after Kriyas Yamsuf, and it was said, and listen carefully, you'll see all of the listening in it. It's Shmiya, right? Not Re'iyah. The pasuk says, "V'haya im shamaya tishma l'koyel Hashem alekecha." The ha'azanta is lashon of oznayim, and you listen l'mitzvaysa v'shamarta kol chukav. Then I won't do any of the makkos that I did in Mitzrayim. Ki ani Hashem roifecha. Iyar. Iyar is a time where we listen even if we can't see. Iyar is a time where we connect even if we don't have the constant inspiration. And it's something for us to, of course, we also have to work on being constantly inspired and find ways of being inspired. Those of you that come or listen to the share every week, that's a way to do that. When we sit together and we talk about Yiras Shamayim, I know it does that for me, fires us up a little bit, makes us a little stronger, makes us feel a little more grounded, reminds us of our priorities, right? That it has that effect. That's one of the reasons that we do that. But what if we don't have that? What about the days in between? What about when things are a little difficult? So there's a certain stubbornness, the Iyar stubbornness, the Shimon stubbornness, the Shmiya, where we say, yeah, all the revelations of Nisan, the revelations of Kriyas Yamsuf, the incredible revelations, I remember them. They didn't happen today, but I remember. I'm not forgetting. I remember how connected I was. I remember what it felt like. You know, for me sometimes, I have to be honest with you, like, it's been already a long time since I've heard my Rosh Hashiva speak. You know, he doesn't speak anymore like he used to, and it's been a long time. And I listen to recordings sometimes. But, especially on Yantif time, I think back to those times that I was a young bacher, and it would be Yantif, and we would go to yeshiva, and I would sit in a room with a few hundred people, and there was a massive tzaddik Talmud Chacham sitting in the front, inspiring us, and we would all sing together, and you just like walked out, like mamish floating, like you didn't realize you were walking out when that was over. You just were in another place. I don't have that opportunity today. I don't get to have that inspiration today. But I need to be Shimon. I need to be able to listen. Even if it's not right here, I need to remember how connected I felt. I need to believe in that connection. And that's what keeps me going, even when I'm not feeling that connection. But that's the up and down of Yiddishkeit. The times we feel connected, and then it's Vayar Yisrael es Mitzrayim Meisal Svasayam, all of our doubts and all of our sfeikas and lack of confidence and worries and hesitations are gone, because we just feel so grounded and so focused and so ready. And then we have the times that I don't feel that in a visceral way right now. I don't feel it. I'm not feeling so inspired today. Am I the only one that has days like that sometimes? I'm not feeling so inspired. But I'm going to still do what I do. It's not just about how I feel. I'm still going to do what I do. Because, I spoke recently to a guy about a Shalom Bayis thing. And he was struggling a lot. And he was making a decision if, as part of his whole mahalach, I'm not getting into all the details, but as part of his mahalach, if maybe he should take some medicine for depression or whatever it was. Okay? That was the conversation. So he told me, I'm curious what you think about this, that he's afraid to take medicine because it might make him feel so much better that he won't feel like he has to make changes in his life. He won't realize there's an issue in his relationship and there's things that need to be worked on. And if he's just so, I don't know why he thinks this medicine makes you feel so happy, but it's not. I'm not telling him to go buy it on a street corner, But he's afraid. He was afraid that, like, now without the medicine, I see how terrible the situation is. But what if I'm not in so much pain? Then I'm not going to see how terrible the situation is. Then I might not deal with it as much. You don't hear that?
Meaning he takes more responsibility when he's depressed.
Yeah, because now he's going to do something about it.
And he does something when he's depressed, right? Usually when you're depressed, you can't do much.
Medicine
Okay.
allows you to feel better.
The medicine
Function and, right.
The medicine will clear, I speak from
Makes you feel
experience,
motivated.
it clears your head so that you don't make the decisions and the mistakes that he might
Put
be
you
making.
into-
Yes,
put you
okay.
into
The problems in his
Okay, trust me, I told him to take
Yeah.
the medicine, but there was something more, a lesson more that I heard from him. That was he also. I'll tell you something else that he told me that inspired me. A great guy, by the way, a very, very, very good, special guy. I'm not putting him down at all. A very, very, very special, good guy. I hope he calls me again. Like a very good guy. And he was saying that, like, on some days he feels like emergency, something needs to be done, and then he's very motivated to make phone calls and do what needs to be done. And on some days he feels like it's okay, and then he's not as motivated to do things. What do you think about that?
It's normal.
What?
It's normal.
So I think it's normal also, but I inspired him to think about something. I told him that the days that things are difficult and the days that things are good, isn't that the ups and downs of life? Mm-hmm. That's how life goes. Our job in life is to have a certain perspective that's not on a roller coaster. That when things are not so good, to remember, there are good days also. And when things are good and going well, to remember, we still have what to deal with here. There is a certain kind of seichel that goes beyond my emotional roller coaster every day. You know the type, like you have like your little child who you're not sure if you should call someone to ask advice about it. Let's say you have a 4-year-old girl who's so chutzpahdik. Okay, I'm just saying theoretically, okay? Let's say such a thing, okay? Let's say you have a 4-year-old, she's so chutzpah, you don't know what to do. Maybe you should call a rav or a therapist or a teacher of yours. You need to ask advice about this, okay? That's it. So it's Monday, you call, you leave a message by the rav, you're going to have a conversation with him on Wednesday. And then on Tuesday, your daughter is not chutzpah. So you cancel the meeting. And then on Wednesday, your daughter's chutzpahdik again. So you quickly call up, you need to have the meeting. Do you live like that? I hope not. Okay? No, you have to be able to say, like, today was a good day, but I know tomorrow might not be such a good day. That's part of life. That sometimes there are good times, sometimes there are hard times. Sometimes things are easier, sometimes they're harder. And not to live so much in the roller coaster that when things are good, what's the problem? My problems are over. I can't believe I ever thought I had any problems. Everything is wonderful. And when things are bad, life is just horrible. Things are terrible. I can't believe it. This is not a life. This is not a marriage. This is not a child. This is not a job. Everything is bad. Right? Emotionally, we do that sometimes, we have to admit. Right? But our job is to have a certain sense, a certain intelligence, where we could take a step back and be like, today's a hard day. Okay, but it doesn't mean life is horrible. Or today's a good day, doesn't mean I don't have things to deal with. Yeah, makes sense? That's what I told this guy also. Like, just because you're on medicine, so the emotions are easier. But there's also seichel. Is there something I need to work on here? You have to also, besides for the emotional roller coaster, you have to have an awareness. I'm saying something pasha, right? You don't agree?
I agree.
You agree, right? That's the goal. We don't always do that properly, but that is the goal. And I think with Avodas Hashem, it's the same way. We cannot live a life of a roller coaster. When we're super inspired, Vayar Yisrael es Mitzrayim Meis al Sfasiyim, all of our doubts are dead. It's geschmack. It's good. I'm grounded. I'm inspired. This is amazing. This is wonderful. I'm on fire. Sometimes we don't feel on fire. That's it. I'm done. No. We have a certain das about us, and we know, yeah, now's a little bit of a harder time. Shleishis yamim bamidbar v'lei matzu mayim. 3 days in the desert without water. Yeah. I remember Kriyas Yamsuf. I'm not feeling that now, but I know what I experienced. I know how amazing it was, and I'm going to remember that even now. And even if now's a dry spell, but I'm going to remember that. And even if now I'm having a little bit of a tough time, and it's a little bit less on fire and a little bit less inspired, but I'm not going to live my Yiddishkeit that it depends on how inspired I am. It's one of the things our generation struggles with, that we like, well, it's almost like this, like, I don't know if you've ever had this in your car, I hope not, where there's like a hole in the tire, so you stop every 50 miles to put more air in. You like living like that,
Where's your spare?
That's not, it's not really a way to live, right? Okay, you can't do that. You fill your tire, it should hold for a while. And that's the way our Yiddishkeit has to be. We can't look at inspiration as like, okay, then oh no, I have to get inspired again. We can't do that. We have to have a certain das, like terem tirun b'fnei Hashem Elokim. Like, it's not only while the inspiration is going on that I'm inspired. I get my crazy inspiration times, I'm on fire, and then I hold on to that. And even if things are not so easy, I'm loyal. And I'm steady, and I keep at it. And that's the midah of the month ahead. The midah of, there's no yantif in the month ahead. Okay, Lag BaOmer has become a yantif in our generation, but there's no yantif like yantif. We have Shavuos coming in the end. Between Pesach and Shavuos, we learn to earn the madregas that we were handed on a silver platter on Pesach, and we build ourselves. It's like, you walk with your baby as he's learning how to walk, right? And then you let go. And if you always hold on to him, it's going to be good that you walk next to him down the chuppah. You can't always hold on to him. Do you agree? HaKadosh Baruch Hu does that for us also. He doesn't always hold on. He wants us to learn how to walk. And then when Shavuos comes, he picks us up in a hug again, like you do when your son finally walks towards you and you grab him because you're so proud that he walked. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does that to us on Shiur. So let's try to be mechazik ourselves, to be steady servants of Hashem. Not because we're boring or bland, but because we're stubborn. We love the inspiration, but we know that even on the uninspired days, we remember that inspiration. And we know what we have to do. Okay? Yashikayach.
Thank you.